My boyfriend ended things, citing red flags after taking advice from his best friend, only to be left scrambling and begging for a second chance. I listened, weighed my options, and then decided it was time to reveal exactly how I turned the tables when he came crawling back. I'm a 23-year-old woman, and I've been with my boyfriend, Eric, 24, for almost 8 months now. Eric's never been in a long-term relationship like this before. Most of his past relationships were short flings lasting only 3 or 4 months. Naturally, I like to believe that our relationship is special to him. However, a few days ago, I began to realize that might not be the case. Eric's best friend, Olivia, 24, has been his neighbor for over 14 years. They met when they were just 10 and have been inseparable ever since, going to the same schools, college, and even working together. When I say best friend, I really mean it. Eric never does anything without consulting Olivia first. Even his decision to date me wasn't entirely his. He later admitted that every girl he's dated had to be approved by Olivia first. And if she wanted him to break up with someone, he would. I guess this was partly why his previous relationships never lasted. He told me about this arrangement 4 months into our relationship, saying it was time I knew. By then, I was already in deep with him, so I decided to stay, even though, in hindsight, it seems like a bad decision. Had I known about his strange dependence on Olivia, I never would have agreed to a first date. My relationship with Olivia had been fine, at least until a few days ago. We had met several times and maintained a civil relationship. I always had this nagging feeling that she subtly made it clear that Eric belonged to her first. Even though it made me feel awkward and excluded, I never brought it up. I tried being friendly at first, but it was clear she had made up her mind to keep me at arm's length. Matters got even more complicated when I somehow turned into competition for her, which she obviously wasn't going to take lightly. About 5 days ago, I got really sick. Living away from home for work, I was on my own. My roommate was away on a trip. Normally, I wouldn't rely on anyone else, but this time I called Eric for help. He was a bit hesitant at first, and I assumed it was because he didn't want to catch my stomach bug. I reassured him it was nothing serious, but he still seemed reluctant. When I pressed him, he admitted he had plans to watch a movie and grab lunch with Olivia, and he wasn't sure he could come over. Already feeling terrible, I was hurt by the fact that Eric was putting Olivia ahead of me. I always knew that if push came to shove, he'd choose Olivia over me, but that still stung. I got really angry, told him he might as well date Olivia, and hung up without another word. I ignored his calls after that, but about an hour later he showed up with an apology and a bowl of homemade soup. His gesture made me feel better, and we spent the day together. By nightfall, I was feeling much improved. However, I didn't expect that my actions would have consequences. The very next day, Eric ghosted me, no calls, no texts. I panicked, thinking something terrible had happened, and tried reaching him all day with no luck. Finally, around midnight, he called. His tone was serious and even a bit upset. After asking if I felt any better, he said I needed to sit down because he was going to break up with me. At first, I thought he was joking, but he went on to explain that, although it was hard for him, he'd come to the conclusion that my behavior was full of red flags and that he couldn't be with me anymore. I was utterly confused. I never thought I'd done anything to raise a red flag, at least not intentionally. I always tried to be a good person and a caring girlfriend, so his sudden decision left me speechless. I just sat there while he explained and then hung up. I was so shocked that I couldn't process what had happened for several minutes. Just the day before, we had a great day together, and now he was saying our breakup was due to red flags? I ended up crying myself to sleep because I couldn't call or text him for any answers. He blocked me everywhere right after ending things, leaving me without any closure. For the next few days, I was torn apart by the breakup, distracted at work, and couldn't stop replaying our last interactions in my head, trying to understand what exactly had turned him off. Every time I thought about it, nothing made sense, until the Olivia factor crept into my thoughts. I hadn't seen her in weeks and had almost forgotten about the way she influenced Eric's decisions. Then, last night, Eric called again, and I was taken aback since I wasn't expecting it so soon after the breakup. I answered, and he started apologizing before I could even speak. He sounded hysterical, and I let him vent. He said that he never truly wanted to break up with me and that it was Olivia who convinced him to do so. Apparently, she didn't like that I made him cancel plans with her and had twisted some of my normal behaviors into red flags. She even claimed that my cooking his favorite meals and buying clothes for him were ways to control him. I couldn't believe anyone would buy into that nonsense, and yet, Eric fell for it. He continued apologizing, saying he was sorry for everything and he wanted us to get back together, willing to do whatever it took. I stayed silent for a while, my anger boiling over. All this time, I had thought the breakup was my fault, and now here he was, admitting he'd been manipulated by Olivia. I was blaming myself, even though it was all Olivia's fault. She was perfectly fine. I should have known she'd strike back because I'd stolen Eric right from under her nose. When I was sick, he chose to take care of me and cancel plans with her, which made me competition, and she couldn't stand that. So, she had to break us up. It all added up. Eric kept pleading with me on the phone to take him back, even having the nerve to say Olivia wouldn't be an issue since he'd keep our relationship a secret. I was shocked that after everything, he could still bring her into the conversation. I just couldn't understand how he was so blind to the fact that she was controlling his life, but that was his problem. If he'd broken up with me for any other reason, I might have considered giving him another chance, but I couldn't accept that he dumped me over something Olivia said without thinking for himself. Clearly, this guy was clueless. Regardless of whether he hit our relationship, Olivia would always have a say, like a puppet master. And honestly, the fact that he wouldn't admit Olivia might not have his best interests at heart, and was even fine with keeping our relationship secret for the sake of their friendship, was a huge red flag. So, I had no plans to get back with him. I made up my mind the moment he told me his real reason for the breakup. I had cried enough over him, and he didn't deserve me. Still, I couldn't let things go without putting Olivia in her place, so I did something extremely petty and manipulative. Even though I'm not proud of it, I felt it was necessary. I told Eric last night that I'd only consider getting back with him if he first told Olivia about his decision and put her in her place for controlling him. He needed to confront her and let her know she wasn't his boss, and only then would I agree to reconcile. If she had humiliated me, I'd definitely return the favor. When I told Eric what I wanted, he was shocked and tried to talk me out of it, insisting that it was extreme and unnecessary. He pleaded with me not to make him do it, but I was determined. I told him that if he texted her exactly what I asked, then maybe I'd take him back. If not, he could say goodbye and stay broken up. After arguing for a few minutes, he eventually sent her the texts and even sent me a screenshot. The moment he did, I hung up and blocked him immediately. I know it was petty and mean, but I couldn't help it. I'd been so upset over our breakup that this was the least I could do. Am I the asshole for making Eric send those texts to Olivia, especially when I never really planned on getting back together? Update 1. It's been 2 days since I last spoke to Eric, and he hasn't been able to reach me. Olivia can't either, because I blocked her as well. I felt guilty about what I made Eric do, but then I read the responses here and realized I have no real reason to feel that bad. Eric had a choice, and he chose to send those texts because he wanted to be with me. And not with her. I didn't force him at gunpoint or anything like that. Yes, lying to him about getting back together was wrong, but I don't think my actions were as hurtful as what I went through. He never hesitated to make me feel like I was the problem in our relationship, when it was actually him, doing everything his so-called best friend told him to do without caring about how it would hurt either of us. He had no idea how terrible I felt during our breakup, overthinking every little mistake until I became even more confused. So, forgive me if I don't feel particularly remorseful for what I did. I haven't told anyone yet that I broke up with Eric, but I'll have to start soon. Just a few hours ago, a friend invited both of us to her birthday party. When I show up without him, I'll have to explain his absence, and I'm dreading that because I really don't know what to say about why we ended things when everything seemed so happy on the surface. I guess I'll have to come up with something, but at least I'm done with that relationship. Update 2. Hey guys, it's been nearly a week since I broke up with Eric, and I thought that blocking him and his BFF meant I'd never have to deal with them again. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. This morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring the first time, but when they called again, I answered. It turned out to be Olivia. As soon as I heard her voice, I almost hung up because I had zero interest in talking to her. But then she said that hanging up would prove I was a coward, afraid to face her. I shouldn't have let that get to me, but it did, so I stayed on the line. Olivia then started talking absolute trash about me right to my face, calling me all sorts of names for what I'd done. She called me a sneaky little liar and said she was glad that Eric and I had broken up because he was too good for me anyway. Then she called me the B word, which really set me off. I snapped and told her exactly what I thought. She was nothing more than a backup girlfriend for Eric and would probably spend her whole life trying to keep other girls away from him so she could have him all to herself. I think I hit a nerve because as soon as I said that, she started stuttering and sounded like she was about to cry. Seizing that moment, I pushed even further, reminding her that she could scream all she wanted, but the truth was, Eric had a choice the other night not to send those texts, and he chose me over her. That was the last straw, and I could hear him burst into tears on the other end. I didn't even feel sorry for her because she was the one who called me to try and make me feel guilty. But now here she is, crying. I don't know if she and Eric are still talking, but I hope she runs back to him to complain about what I said, and then they come after me again, because honestly, I'd love that. Opportunity to put them in their place and remind them I'm not someone they can just mess with and get away with it. They're not the only ones who can hurt feelings, and if they're so eager to dish it out, they should be ready to take it too. So update 3. A couple of days ago, I got a call from Olivia that ended pretty badly for her. I actually hoped Eric would confront me because it would give me the chance to let them both have it, and guess what? It finally happened today. The friend who introduced us was throwing a party, and we were all invited. She even invited Eric, not knowing we'd broken up. About an hour into the party, he walked in with Olivia right beside him, both looking like they were ready for a fight. I pulled my friend aside, explained everything, and even offered to leave early if things went south. I wanted to avoid a scene, especially at my friend's birthday, so as not to steal her spotlight. But she insisted I stay, admitting she wouldn't mind if we confronted each other because she was excited to watch the drama unfold. I had the decency to ignore them, knowing that if anyone was going to pick a fight, it had to be them. I was classy enough to hold back, but when it came to showing them their place, I was ready to stoop. About half an hour after their arrival, Eric came up to me while I was chatting with someone. Nothing flirty, just casual conversation. I guess he needed an excuse to put me down. He made a remark, loud enough for everyone to hear, about how I seemed to have moved on already. Then, in front of everyone, he called me a cheater and a phony. Olivia, standing right behind him with a smug smile, practically provoked me. I really wanted to wipe that smile off her face, but managed to keep my cool. Eric kept going, even bringing up the phone call from a few days ago, saying I was wrong about Olivia being his backup, implying it was me, since apparently I wasn't even worth dating. I ended up laughing at him because, if I recall correctly, he was the one who came crawling back just days after dumping me over what Olivia said. Now it was my turn to expose him and his so-called best friend for who they really were. I told him both he and Olivia were far beneath my standards, and he should consider himself lucky to have convinced me to date him at all. To me, he was nothing more than a spineless puppet controlled by Olivia, and no other woman would want him. I might have given him a chance, but he blew that opportunity. As for his so-called best friend, she was so insecure and pathetic that she tried to break us up just because she spent one day with me when I was sick, and even went so far as to use a new phone number just to call me. Her actions were pure insecurity, showing just how desperate she was. Honestly, they were a match made in misery, and I genuinely hope they end up together because no one else should have to deal with them. By the time the party wound down, everyone was silently staring at us. Eric had nothing to say except for glaring at me, and Olivia, without a proper comeback, started hurling insults while invading my personal space. I think she was trying to bait me into hitting her so she'd have an excuse to hit back, but I kept my cool. I didn't even want to lay a hand on her. Once she started breaking down, Eric decided it was time to leave, clearly not wanting to suffer more embarrassment. Once again, their pathetic attempt to humiliate me backfired, and they had to leave. The poor guy even had to drag Olivia out since she refused to accept defeat. After they left, my friend came up and told me how badass I was, and we all had a good laugh about what happened. We got back to the party, finishing the evening with plenty of drinks and a fantastic dinner. I'm happy about it all because I finally got the closure I needed. Update 4. Hey guys, a quick update. I just heard that Olivia and Eric are officially together. It's been 3 months since our showdown at the party, and I guess they figured I was right. No sane person would put up with them individually, so they're better off as a couple. I heard this from a friend of a friend, since I'm not in touch with them anymore. Meanwhile, I'm seeing a new guy who's exactly my type, and I really hope this works out, and that he doesn't have some psycho best friend he's hiding from me. After the fallout from that chaotic night, I took a deep breath and decided it was time to leave the past where it belonged. The next morning, after nursing a bit of a hangover and reflecting on everything, I met up with my new guy for breakfast at a quiet cafe downtown. Over coffee and pancakes, we talked about our lives, dreams, and the importance of healthy relationships. He was genuine, kind, and didn't have any of the baggage that had weighed me down before. As we slowly built a connection, I began to realize that the wild drama of my past, filled with toxic exes and unnecessary power plays, had only made room for something far better: self-respect and a desire for true partnership. Meanwhile, word spread that Olivia and Eric's so-called relationship had already begun to crumble under constant bickering and mutual resentment. A couple of months later, I even ran into them at another friend's gathering. Their constant glances and whispered arguments were a stark reminder of how toxic relationships can poison every part of your life. At that moment, I felt a profound sense of closure. I'd learned that standing up for myself wasn't about tearing others down. It was about choosing a path that honored who I was and what I deserved. I finally realized that no one had the right to diminish my worth, and that the drama I once craved was nothing compared to the peace of genuine connection. By the end of the summer, things had truly shifted. I embraced my new relationship, supported by real friends who celebrated my growth, and I left behind the bitterness of my past with gratitude for the lessons learned. With a newfound clarity and the comfort of knowing I was heading toward a brighter, drama-free future, I closed that chapter of my life for good.